Hey guys, today's video is about finding fossil wood, petrified wood, and this is from a site in Delaware, but you can find it in New Jersey and all along this eastern seaboard and the Pacific. But this is a site called in Odessa in Delaware, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Okay, so let's just say hello to Einstein, because I guess this is sort of scientific, and he talked about relativity of time. And these rocks, all rocks, always we have to ask ourselves, when was this rock formed? So just to start off, I got the idea to go to Odessa from this book, Robert Beard, Rock Hounding. This book, I don't know if I totally recommend it for people, because he calls it rock hounding, but the rocks that he likes to find aren't the kinds I like to find so much. But I did find the petrified wood, so I'm very happy. And he says go to Odessa, Delaware, and go a little south, a couple miles south, look for areas that have been cleared. And I found a construction site, and actually two construction sites. The first one I found nothing, but then the second one I found some of the petrified wood he said you can find. And the only thing about construction sites is that they bring in soil from other places, and they bring in other rock. So this particular site had metamorphic rock, which couldn't be found in that site unless you dig down really deeply. So obviously they brought in this metamorphic rock for construction reasons. But other than that, I found the kinds of things that he said you would find. So let's get into it now. First is the petrified wood, which is the whole point of this deal. And so this was the coolest one for me. It's the last one I found. I really like how you can see I guess those are the annual rings. So if you can see that in there. So that's cool. And it almost looks like a piece of wood, except guess what? It's not. It's stone, as hard as stone. We also had, I found a few other pieces. I won't go into a whole lot with those, but they've been replaced. So what has happened here is the organic materials have all dissolved, and they've all been replaced by silicon materials. So if I wet the side of or something, you would see the little lines of like chalcedony or whatever it is in there. So the original minerals are long gone, and then these other minerals come in and replace the original organic material, and you end up with a record of the structure that was in the wood. So that was a lot of fun, and you find these little pieces too. And this one was a fake one, though, and I won't say fake, but I thought this was one. But then you can see maybe here there's mica on it, and that would not develop without heat and pressure, and that you didn't have in the Delaware in this formation. So this is probably, it broke off of a piece that came with the construction, bringing in metamorphic rocks. So I almost fell out, so that's a toss. Okay, so that's the petrified wood. I also found this huge piece, and I don't know if this one is petrified wood. I don't want to make any claims, but if anybody's an expert, let me know. But it does have the lines in it that you would expect, but it's a little different, and it's much thicker than these other guys. So it's either a big log or something. It kind of looks like wood, but I'm very skeptical, and there's lots of stuff that looks like wood. So it might be, it might not be, don't know. I'd love to know, because if it is a log or something, that would be really cool. But anyway, So that's what I found. Exactly what Robert Beard said you would find in that location, and it is it's, let's ask Einstein. It's so how old are these? How old are these pieces of petrified wood? And I checked with a book here called Fossil Collecting, and also Robert Beard mentions it's from the Pleistocene. So the Pleistocene is not that old. If you look at this whole chart here, you start way back over here, 6 billion years ago, when there was a supernovation explosion or whatever, and then only like 5 billion years or less than 5 billion, we actually had the solar system. Then you go squirrel, squiggle, squiggle. You know, just billions of years of things going on, all these around and around in time, and all these evolution of all these different species. And then finally, at the very end of the process, you end up with the Quaternary period, which is what we're in. And we're in the Holocene Epoch. But so the Pleistocene is right before that. And that is about 11,000 years ago to about 2 million years ago. This is when you had the major ice ages, 4 of them. And they made in Delaware, they didn't actually, the glaciers didn't come in, but they made the ocean levels go up and down. And so the trees would grow in this lowland area. Trees were very similar to what we have now. And you even had redwood trees all over, but they weren't just in California like they are now. And the human being, the true human being, arose during that time. You had mammoths and those woolly mammoths and saber-toothed tigers and whatever that were abundant then. But as far as plants, you had very similar plants. And so that's what we're talking about here with those guys were growing at the same time as human beings were developing across the ocean in Africa. And you had some other, this I'll show you. This is like some kind of fossil from the site. I'll just give you a look with a magnifier so you can see it's got these little circles. If you can see the little circles there. If you look really closely, there's like bunch of them have like a little white dot in the middle. So, yep, I don't know if that's some sort of coral or sponge or something, but it's probably some kind of ocean thing. And then these guys were growing in the lowlands near the ocean, and then they got covered, and eventually the chemicals replaced the original. This is a neat little, when you look at pebbles, you find cool things. So I always keep the ones that just seem kind of cool to me. This is like a flint nodule or something that the white is chalk from the exoskeletons of lots of little, I forget the name, but little exoskeletons of animals, one-celled animals. And then you have jasper. I found, little jasper pebbles. I love the red jasper, and I found parts of bigger jasper pebbles, but they were all broken. And then there's brown jasper. I'm not a big fan of brown jasper, but I kept this just to show you. And you can I found big pieces of the brown jasper, but I didn't keep them. So basically, that's what you can hope to find if you go to this site in Odessa, Delaware. Go south about 2 or 3 miles or less, and just find an open area. And it's not easy to find this petrified wood. There's not very many pieces just laying all over the place, but now you'll know what to look for. I didn't know exactly what to look for, but this is very similar to what Beard has. So you'll know, once you know what to look for, then you can spot it a lot better. So that's this episode, and just to remind you, like just across the bay, you can find the same things in New Jersey in certain areas. I don't know exactly the locations for petrified wood, though. I know a friend who found petrified wood at Sunset Beach, but there were no clear pebbles as you can find in Cape May. I couldn't find any of those. So, but I'm really happy. So that's this one for today. And just keep looking down. Okay, see you, Einstein.